Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the October 15th, 2018 meeting, Development Governmental Relations Subcommittee to Holyoke City Council. Thank you all for being here. I've got Councilor Josie Valentin with me and Councilor Pete Tallman and Councilor Mike Sullivan. Right behind me is John Dijak and Marcus Marrero and Bob Parent, all with the city government, and I'm just serving as the chairman tonight. Okay, so I do not have prior meeting minutes, so that is agenda item 1, so we'll just leave that tabled. And if I could get a motion to take number 2 off the table and open a public hearing.
So moved.
So, number 2.
And is it seconded? Okay, motion's been made and seconded to take agenda item number 2 off the table and open up the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Councilor McGivern joins us. This is a public hearing for a special permit application from Mr. Jorge Alvarez for a driveway construction at 45 Longwood Avenue in Holyoke. So, Mr. Parent, let's see. So I have Mr. Alvarez. Mr. Alvarez is here with his daughter, and this your dad, Mr. Alvarez, or your father-in-law? Father-in-law. Okay. Well, welcome to all of you. Okay, really nice to have you here. Mr. Alvarez submitted a petition to the Board of Public Works. The Board of Public Works denied the petition, and so Mr. Alvarez is seeking a special permit for a driveway. I can say that we worked for a little bit of time on this, and I think we've come up with a reasonable accommodation, but I certainly want to hear from Mr. Parent, our city engineer. Mr. Parent, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, this dates back to the middle of June, actually, shortly after I started. The Board of Public Works, as you know, administers driveway permits, but we don't have the authority to grant a permit for a driveway that's located in the front yard of a property. And in the property in question at 45 Longwood Ave, because it's at a street corner, the front yard is expansive because it covers both sides of the corner, and really doesn't provide a lot of available land that meets the city's ordinance that wouldn't be considered a front yard. But given that we had no ability to grant a permit, we denied the permit. I met with Mr. Alvarez. I explained to him what the process needed to be to come forward to the council and request a special permit. And I believe that's why he's here this evening. The copy I did receive through the clerk's office was a little bit difficult to read in terms of where he's proposing the driveway to be located right now, so I don't know if you have a readable plan, or if Mr. Alvarez has a readable copy of that.
Well, I do. We're gonna let Mr. Alvarez come to the microphone and explain it, but I'm very familiar with it because it was really us working together on this to come up with a what we think is a pretty fair resolution.
Okay.
So, Mr. Alvarez, why don't you come up to the microphone and tell us what it is you propose?
Okay, hi, I'm Jorge Alvarez. I have lived in Longwood Avenue for 24 years. I live in 47, and almost 2 years ago, my father-in-law and me, we bought the house 45. It's behind my house, but that house is in the corner of the street between Longwood and Oakwood. It's in the corner of the street. And we was thinking to submit an application for the driveway. We submit the application, we get a contractor, the contractor submit the application. That was in June. And at the beginning, the DPW, the engineer, I think in Sebastian, denied the application because they have 2 problems. The first problem was you cannot do the driveway between the house and the street. And the other one was on the front of the house, because the problem, the house is in the corner, and the front in the Longwood and front in the Oakwood is, that's the front of the house. And they denied the application, and now after that we decide to do the driveway not between the house and the street. We move the driveway, going to do the driveway in the back of the house, and that way we are not between the house and the street. We submit the application, but they deny again because now they say it's front of the house too. That's why we came here, because we wanted try to submit a special permit to get the application for, to get the driveway. The only problem is the front of the house. The other the other requisite they needed, everything is okay. DPW told me it's only because the problem is the front of the house.
Right, so that's it. So I want to, and we'll ask if the public is here to speak in favor and against it. I just want the councilors at the committee, and Councilor McGivern is here. Welcome, Joe. I want the committee to, so what I brought my computer to show, because his map isn't, I mean, it's okay. So this is a very nice house at the corner of Longwood Avenue and Oakwood. Can I blow that up? No, of course I can't. The house faces Longwood Avenue. Oakwood, as you can see, is it's a very small dead end street. What we discovered when we were kind of going around the perimeter of his lot, the original plan was to have kind of a half moon shaped driveway that was not going to be a winner, and that was the original plan. What we discovered, though, when we were walking around, is that there's already a curb cut right along the property line with the abutter, and Mr. Alvarez is proposing now to put a driveway. It's really not in the front yard now. It's really in the backyard, so it'd be kind of behind the house. I don't know if you can see that, Mike, or not.
Yeah.
Okay. And so his map on here shows the width between the house and the driveway, and then the abutter's property line. The abutter has its driveway running right here, which is east and west. Mr. Alvarez proposes a parallel driveway running east and west, but of course on his side of the property line. And that's where it is. Do councilors have questions for Mr. Alvarez or for Mr. Parent? Council Sullivan.
Yeah. On the picture here, it shows a swimming pool back there also.
Yeah, the pool is in the back, it's in ground pool, but even after we move the fence, we're going to have a space around the pool, and we're going to have 16 feet from the fence to the street, and that way we can do the driveway in that space.
Oh, you got copies. Oh, great.
Copies
Oh, great.
with the pool here.
No, I don't need it. I'm okay. Go ahead, Mike.
And the property where the other one with the driveway we can see there, that's your property also, or neighbors?
It's neighbors.
Neighbors. The neighbor has another driveway right there.
Yep, I can see that. So you'd be able to fit the driveway between the swimming pool and the fence?
Yeah, we're going to move the fence inside, and that way we have 16 feet from the fence to the street, and that way we can do the driveway in that space.
Okay.
The sidewalk already had the core, and because they have it before. When we bought a house, they have a car inside of the fence over there, and I don't know if they have it driveway or something over there, but we want to do a bigger driveway for 2 cars, and that way Raul and my daughter can park the car over there and avoid, especially in the winter, the parking ban. We got to go out to move the car, and it's going to be easy for them, and it's going to be easy for the DPW to pick it out the snow, especially because that street is a dead end.
Mr. Alvarez, do you intend to lead we discussed this when I was there, and whenever I was there, I don't remember now. The fence that you have now between your property and your abutter's property, are you going to leave that fence standing?
No, we're going to move the front of the fence to cover the between the pool and the street, but the other fence is going to stay there.
That's what I meant. So the fence that kind of runs parallel to the abutter's driveway, you're leaving that fence there, correct? Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there any member of the public that wants to speak for or against this? I don't hear any member of the public. Mr. Parent, do you have any other thoughts?
I would say, based on what I'm hearing now, it seems almost as if a special permit isn't required, because at that point, the driveway which is now proposed would not be in a front yard any longer, and then would just have to comply with DPW requirements.
Okay, and DPW requirements would be,
The two things that would be important from a location standpoint is having the driveway 20 feet from an intersection, which, again, from what I'm hearing, sounds like it's more than 20 feet,
definitely more than 20
and
feet.
5 feet off the property line.
Yes, we meet all requirements. The only requirement that we don't meet is front of the house. But the other ones, we meet everything. And we know that if we get a permit, we gotta go back for the DPW and the engineer, Sebastian needs to approve to do that.
So we'll make if and when the time comes, I'll make the motion that I intend to make the motion to grant this with the aforesaid conditions of 20 feet from the intersection and 5 feet off the property line as well, because that's city, is that city ordinance?
That is a DPW standard adopted by the Board
DPW
of Public
standard.
Works, yes.
Okay, so so the DPW standards. I don't hear anything from the public, counselors. I think we can make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
On motion to close the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Under discussion, any counselor want
I just got a question for Mr. Parent.
Yep.
Did you say it doesn't, now because of the way they're doing it, doesn't require a special permit?
Not having a plan in front of me, but from what I'm hearing is that the driveway is being proposed to be on the Oakwood
That's right.
portion of the property and close to the fence on the Oakwood property line, which at that point would now place the driveway in the rear yard as defined by the city's ordinance. And if that's the case, then no action by the council, in fact, is required. But if you want, what was originally proposed was a driveway literally, in the front of the house, up alongside the house, that would have required a special permit. And if I can approach the table maybe, just so I can point to the map, so there's no confusion, because I have it in my head where I think the driveway is being proposed. It's supposed to be located here?
That's right.
Okay. That under the city's ordinance would be the rear yard. And at that point, then, if that came in front of the DPW tomorrow, it would be approved as a driveway, as same as any other driveway.
Oh, so maybe, my only thought was from poor Mr. Alvarez kind of going back and forth here like a ping pong ball. So what's, if we sort of gave this leave to withdraw now, can he just go right to Board of Public Works tomorrow and just get this done?
As long as the driveway is being proposed where I just pointed to on the plan, yes, it would fully comply with the driveway standards and not require a special permit.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, okay, should we be, alrighty, so I don't know what the best course of action is. I'm thinking that the best course of action is to move this, is to grant a special permit tonight. However, I'm going to advise Mr. Alvarez to go to see you tomorrow if you want some, you're saving yourself a week, basically, but, you can start the process sooner. So, I think you heard what the city engineer said, that at this point, the way we kind of worked it out, you and I did, it probably it no longer requires a special permit. I'm not sure why when you originally submitted this revision, well, we closed the public hearing, but I will say, I'll say to the applicant that I think, no, I'm not saying we don't do everything efficiently in city government, because sometimes we do, but just as a way to make sure, we can maybe, I don't know what the other council are going to say, but I would tend to support this tonight, and then we can move this to the full city council. However, it wouldn't preclude you from going to the Board of Public Works, making an appointment with Mr. Parent, go see him maybe tomorrow or Thursday, and maybe just, working it out. And if it does work out, Mr. Parent can send a communication to me saying, good to go, and we don't need a special permit, and we can take this off the table at the full city council meeting. Does that sound okay, Mr. Parent?
That sounds good. Maybe one comment, because again, I'm doing this without the benefit of a plan. If I can approach again, just to show you a picture out of your ordinance. If the driveway extends beyond the house, as it's shown in this picture, would not be in the front yard. If the driveway stops here, it would front yard. Exactly what Mr. Alvarez is proposing at this point, so.
Oh, right, yeah, so there may be a little bit of a,
So that's, if the parking is in that crosshatched area, it's front yard. If the parking is beyond the crosshatched area, then it's not. As defined, and this is a page right out of your ordinance.
I believe it is close.
Okay,
Well, yeah,
so maybe Mr. Alvarez and I get together tomorrow, and we can just make certain we both understand, and my answer may be he's all set, or it may be,
Get the special
he might
permit.
still need a special permit.
Okay, well, the nice thing is, I mean, all the butters were notified, nobody complained, I mean, I think he reached out to them, I gave him that counsel, and at any rate, in any event, they're not here tonight. I mean, I think the nice thing is for the councilors to know that there's already a curb cut there, so it's not like we have to, I mean, there's already a curb cut, so it's already a driveway. Right now, it looks like it might have been abandoned at some point, or, but it's already a driveway in place, so it's a nice, we don't have to do anything to the city sidewalk, which is a good thing. So I'd like to make a motion, I will make the motion.
I could ask a quick question,
Oh,
Mr. Chairman?
I didn't hear you, I didn't see your hand up. Yeah, Councilman McGivern.
Just went up. Does anybody know what the fees are for the permits? How much was paid to the city clerk? Did you have to pay the city clerk for a permit? What I was going to suggest is, Mr. Parent, is there a fee for the DPW?
I believe that's the fee that he's referring to.
Well, if he paid the city clerk for the front yard, and then he goes to see you tomorrow,
Could be applied,
I
yes,
think we could just transfer and
yes.
just to make it one fee, not two.
Sure. I mean, listen, I'm getting the sense we're probably gonna pass this tonight. I don't really see too much, negative feedback at this point, so, but if, I'm just doing it in the name of efficiency and to make sure he gets it. But yes, so councilors have questions? No, here, seeing none. So the motion will be to, grant a special permit with the aforesaid conditions, relative to 20 feet from the intersection, 5 feet from the property line. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, on discussion, hearing none, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. So we'll recommend that this be, approved by the full city council when we meet next, Tuesday.
Tomorrow.
Oh, my God. Well, it is next Tuesday, but I was thinking next week, thank you for.
Yes, it's next tomorrow.
Yeah, it is next Tuesday, but when we meet tomorrow, meet tomorrow, so we'll recommend that it's approved. I'm all out of sorts here. Okay, so we will do that, and then,
I will have an answer tomorrow morning.
yeah, go from there, okay? Thank you, Mr. Alvarez, thank you so much for coming down. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, nice seeing all of you, yep, take care. All right, so, excuse me, I just want to get a pen. Excuse me, counselors, just give me a minute. 10,
No, our meeting was
here,
just about done when I got there.
nothing, okay. All right, nice. Go the agenda. All right, Marcos, what would you say, Marcos, if we kind of took all these, 2, 3 through 8 as a package? Would that make sense, Marcos? I mean, they're all kind of the same, or do we need to, we can take them all up at once. Is there anything we should,
I don't mind how you decide to vote. If you want me to ramble through all of them in a row, I could do that.
I think it would make sense, so, if I could get a motion to suspend rules, take 3 through 8 as a package.
Suspend the rules and take items number 3 through 8 as a package.
Second?
On the motion to suspend rules, take up items 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9 3, 6, 7, and 8 off the table. All in favor? Aye. Okay. These are similarly worded orders. I'm just going to really skim these just for the public. So these are that pursuant to 30B of the general laws and city ordinance, procurement ordinances, that we declare the following parcels as surplus property available for disposition. The properties are 229 Beech, 47 Chapin, 285 Main, 405-407 Main, 86 Beech, 416 Appleton,
86 Beech is the last one that we're declaring surplus.
oh, okay, so we just have to, okay, so, I'm sorry, so 7 and 8 are kind of separate, okay, so we'll just, I'm sorry about that, we'll just have to reconsider our action. Take 3, 4, 5, and 6 off the table. Can I have that motion, please?
Your motion to take items 3, 4, 5, and 6 off the table.
Second.
Discussion.
A motion to take 3, 4, 5, and 6 off the table, and we can reconsider our action. All in favor? Aye, okay. And, okay, so those are the four before us. 86 Beech, 405-407 Main, 285 Main, 47 Chapin, and 229 Beech, available to declare surplus property. Marcos and John are here from Office of Planning and Economic Development. Take it away.
Sure, thank you. So two of these properties are, so it's a total of 5. 2 of them are on Beech Street, 2 of them are on Main Street, 1 is on Chapin. The first 2 that I'll talk about, I believe they had gone to auction before, but were not successful. The other 3 were part of demolition projects led by the city and are now vacant parcels of land. So the first one is 229 Beech Street. It is a vacant single-family house, about just over 6,000 square feet. It's been city-owned since the beginning of last year, and it's zoned multifamily residence. It's one of the few remaining properties on that Beech Street corridor that still provides blight there. The other one, of course, being 86 Beech, which we'll be talking about later. The next slide identifies it on a map. It's the second property past the intersection of Beech and Cabot Street to your left if you're driving north. And then the next slide identifies the picture. You probably recognize it if you've ever been driving down Route 202, just past Wisteria-Hearst. It has boarded up windows. So just like all of these, what we're looking for is that it be declared surplus so that the city has the legislative authorization to seek a sale under the guidelines set in Massachusetts procurement law, which is Chapter 30B. We usually talk about this, so I'll say it. Declaring surplus requires a 2/3 majority vote of the city council. Once that authorization is obtained, if it is obtained by the executive branch, it puts it out for sale. In this case, we could do a highest bid, which is most likely in this case, because there are very few options of what you could do on the site. So we would probably have some minimum criteria on what we would want to see, but it would be residential in all likelihood. And then the highest bid would get it, similar to how someone would would sell their house, the person who provides the most amount of money. Once proposals are received and a winning bid is obtained for this, then that would come back to the city council via communication of the mayor, and then the council votes on whether to accept or deny the offer. The acceptance requires a simple majority vote of the council. Unless there are specific questions on this one, I can move through, or we can take questions later on, whatever is the pleasure of the council.
Why don't you, if councils have questions, they can interrupt, but if
Okay.
if not hearing none, just
So
move on to the next one.
the next one is 47 Chapin Street. It is right nearby Peck School, actually behind Peck School. It is a vacant 2-family house, almost 7,000 square feet on the lot. It's been city-owned since 2014, and as I said, this was unsuccessful through the auction process. Its assessed value is at $116,000, and it is zoned downtown residential. The next image shows exactly on the where on the map it is. As you can see, it's right next to the back access road to Peck School. And the next slide shows an image of what it looks like from the street. Very likely, this would be a bid, highest bidder with minimum qualifications and requirements on investment in the site. The next three are vacant parcels. Two of them on Main Street. So this one, 285 Main, it's a 2,700 square foot lot. It used to have a building with a sign on it that said El Tropical, I think, and it was in very, very bad shape. The city took it down using community development block grant funds mostly, I believe, earlier this year, and leaned the value of that demolition. It was awarded to the city very, very recently on August 23rd of this year. It's zoned business highway, as many properties on that corridor on Main Street, inexplicably, but that's another topic. So after the demolition, that's where it sits, kind of in between, in front of the municipal parking lot on Main Street, kind of in between Enlace de Familias and Calle Social Club. There's other properties there, but just to give you a sense.
That was filled with trash for the longest time, right? That was a real...
That one was an actual building. You may be referencing 277 Main, which was two doors down, if you will. We actually took that up, if not the last DGR meeting, the one before that, and declared it surplus as well.
Okay, thank you.
There was a couple of buildings there that were taken down.
Just a quick question. Marcos, was one of those lots there paved over recently? Because I drove by there yesterday, I think. It looked like there's some pavement in one of those. Would that be possible that somebody might have
I
paved
admit
it
that
with blacktop?
I have not looked at 285 over the last couple of weeks myself, so I'm not sure that it was paved. Most likely, there was some sort of compacted gravel put there, rather than bituminous concrete put on top of it like a parking lot.
Okay.
I say most likely because that's what likely a contractor would have done for us, not knowing what we would have wanted to do. Also, we wouldn't have wanted to create a problem with water absorption in the ground that then it's just like going to the abutters and stuff like that. So
Okay, yeah, 'cause I just went, I thought I drove by there yesterday or the day before between Cabot and down towards Appleton on the left. It was one of those lots, seemed like it was paved with blacktop, so I don't know, maybe something to check on.
yeah, so there is a product that it's basically asphalt shillings that may have been provided instead of gravel, and so if you're going by quickly, that could look like it's paved, but it would actually be pervious.
Hard pack?
Hard pack, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next one,
So what would you, so how would you, what's the plan to dispose of that? Is it, you're going to do it through the highest bidder as well?
this one, it is, and particularly for the existing zoning, which is business highway, this is a problem that affects many vacant properties on this corridor where they're not sized well enough for the zoning. So when you get through the setbacks, which is something like 35 feet on the front side and then 25 feet on the back side, and then I forget what it is on the side, it may be 10 or 15 feet on either side on these very small lots, you end up only being able to put a shack or something like that. The best example that I can provide for that is Fiesta Cafe, which is only a few doors down from this. They bought the abutting lot, and their restrictions due to the zoning, which is a business highway, which is really more of a suburban type zoning, it doesn't fit the historic pattern of the center city. So they were severely restricted. They had plans on building certain things they couldn't, and so their kiosk is very small, kind of in the middle of the lot. Because they can treat it as common ownership, they could build to the property line with their own property at Fiesta Cafe. So all that is to say, we would put this out probably as a request for proposals for the time being. Similar to 277 Main Street, which is two doors down towards the north, it may be something that we can leverage to try to help along development on either side of these I believe that the buildings on either side are vacant right now. So if someone were interested in developing them, this could be an amenity for those buildings.
So there's no real, we don't want to talk about the zoning right now, do we? I mean, is there a proposal to what it should be zoned?
There is an order filed by Councilor Roman to redo zoning in South Holyoke that would address this problem. That's not to say that it's the only problem with it. Even if you can build up to the property line, then it's not a regulatory problem. Then it becomes an economic one, economic likelihood that someone would build exactly like it was before. So it's allowable. It's just like what's the likelihood of that happening? So either way, with a request for proposals, we could consider both of them. But by putting it up for surplus now, we can start receiving those options. And if we don't get anything, we can keep extending the request for proposals.
And the other address one I mistakenly identified, that was, what one, Marcos? That was 277?
That was probably 277 Main Street, which was declared surplus not too long ago. That one is directly abutting the Calle Social Club. I think that's closer to Spring Street. Yeah, so that would be parcel 2 on that block. We're talking about parcel 4.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Next one, 405, 407 Main Street. It is about 2,600 square foot a piece of vacant land. This one was most recognizable by having a standing facade and not much else behind it. Most of the building had already collapsed in on itself, and the facade was kind of holding itself up by the two abutting buildings. And so the city, it still had other stuff behind it, but really it was that other stuff wasn't holding the facade. So for the past couple of months, it had been fenced off from the sidewalk to make sure that it didn't fall on anyone. The city, using mostly or exclusively community development block grant funds, took down that structure and cleaned the lot. The assessed land value right now is $24,800, and it is zoned business highway. So similar to 277 Main before and 285 Main now that we just discussed, this would be a small vacant piece of land that we would put out to a request for proposals. So that's what it looks like on the map. It's next to, what is that, Hamilton Street? Hamilton and Main. And
Where's Nueva? Is that right in that?
it's right in between the two buildings owned by, so the Nueva Esperanza headquarters is the one on the corner of Hamilton and Main, just to the north of that property. Nueva Esperanza also owns a property just south of 407 Main Street, also known as El Mercado. And then the picture that you see on the next slide, that's actually an image from the back, so that that's as if you're standing in the alleyway, and that was what was cleared from the back. We didn't have a good picture of the front, other than Google Street View. Our final contestant this evening is 86 Beech Street, which is a 6,600 square foot lot, almost at the corner of Beech and Hampden. Its assessed land value is $29,000, just over $29,000. It's been city owned since May of this year. There was the weirdest one family house structure on it for a long time. You can see there on the map, and it's just odd because it was built almost to the property line. I can only assume that at some point those were two parcels and then they bought the neighboring one, because I just can't imagine someone just decided to build on one side and not in the middle of a parcel. But it had been vacant and abandoned for a long time. Earlier this year, the city demolished it, led by the building department and their team to do demolitions in-house. So that project has been completed, and now it's a vacant lot.
Oh, so the house is, hold on, Joe, 'cause we're going back to Joe's boyhood. But that house is demoed?
It is now demolished, yes.
Oh, I missed.
I'm sorry if I killed someone's memories or dreams.
Oh, no, I haven't gone by there in a bit, but I used to go by there, I mean, a lot. Coaching ball over at Mitchell and playing ball, Mitchell, of course, but, yeah, it's just been sitting there for a long time.
Yeah.
Councilman Givner, sorry.
I was just curious if Mr. Morel knows the prioritizing of this house for demolition, how that took place.
Honestly, I don't. I know that there was a lot of garbage accumulating there, and it's probably a nuisance to neighbors. I do know that there's one abutter that's interested in it as well. So those were probably two big factors. You know, we get complaints. We get not just complaints on critters being around there, but also, you know, homeless trying to find shelter.
I hope the abutter's to the right of the house.
To the right of.
You mean to the south, to the right in that image? Well, we'll see, right? This will be publicly put out to bid.
So this will be RFP?
Yes, probably a request for proposals. It's big enough to have new construction on it, and it could also be accessible to abutters, and they can state their case as to why they would want it.
There's definitely an issue with, go, Joe, I'm sorry.
No, you're not, David. There's a duplex right to the right that was put up by Old Holyoke Development, and I would think that would be a perfect spot to put up maybe 2 duplexes.
You want to see parking there, Joe?
I'd rather see the property tax and some good homes for some good people to
Sure.
own.
Sure, it's kind of tight with parking, with the block that faces out to, that part of Hampden. But at any rate, but we'll see, right, I guess.
And we won't be closing off proposals to any of these alternatives. And the reality is, you know, we can think of many options here, but until we see who's ready to proceed with something, then, you know, we won't know. Interest vanquish all the time. And, you know, developers come all the time as well and say, you know, let's do this project. So we'll put it out. It'll be flexible. And if an abutter wants it, or if someone wants to develop something there, we'll be open to that. And then we'll come back to the council with a proposal, and we'll share what we got.
But Joe, so the duplex, as you said, to the right, that's,
If you're looking this way, to the left of that red arrow,
okay, and who owns that now?
I don't know the owners, but it was an Old Holyoke Development project
Oh, okay.
prior to the new title. New Holyoke Development?
One Holyoke.
One Holyoke Development. Thank you, Councilor Bartley.
One Holyoke CDC. Okay. All right, councilors have questions for Marcos at this point? I think we all was pretty thorough. And I think councilors understand the difference, how we got to vote on this, with surplus being 2/3 and final disposition being majority. I think we're all familiar with that by now. I don't really hear any questions at this point from anybody, so perhaps a motion.
Make a motion to approve the surplus of all these properties?
Second?
So on the motion to declare all the aforesaid properties surplus available for disposition. On discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we approved that one 4-0. Okay. All right. Thank you, Marcos and John, for that. Let's see. Now we'll go on. Let's take number 7. Well, we've had this before us as well. If I get a motion to take number 7 off the table,
Make
please.
a motion to take up item number 7 for discussion?
It is number 7, right?
Well, it's actually they doubled the,
Yeah, are we missing a
yeah,
number here?
there's
No,
two,
They've got 2 numbers.
there's 2 number 3s, so
Oh, okay, that's where I was.
and maybe you can,
Okay,
8.
okay, so if I could get a motion to take what says on this sheet, item 7, but really is agenda item number 8 off the table. Is that motion made?
Motion to take item number 8 off the
Okay,
table.
motion made and second, take number 7/8 off the table, all in favor?
Aye.
This is a motion to declare 416 Appleton, declare that 416 Appleton Street has not been used for a park or open space, is not needed for such purposes. Petition the general court for a special act to remove 416 Appleton from provisions of Article 97. Propose to substitute or swap Article 97 designation in 416 Appleton, replacing it with the designation on land associated with Holyoke Center City Pedestrian Plaza as a part of the petition to the general court in compliance with state regs. Designate 30 John and the northernmost corner of 505 Dwight, which is approximately 4,625 square feet of vacant land, available for open space and or recreational purposes. Okay, so, and there's a lot of question. John's put that up. I think most of us are familiar with it here, that it's directly across from the YMCA. It rests between, I think they call that People's Park, Joe, but I'm not 100% positive of the name, but Councilor Valentin can help me on that. And it's just between that and then there's an alleyway, and then there's a couple of multi-family homes. I'm not sure how many families are in each of those homes. And also proximate to that is a pretty big apartment block on Pine Street as well. So in an area that's really jammed for parking. So I know that lot's been before us in the past. We did not approve a bid a couple years ago for this. And so, Marcos, where are we now? I know Councilor McGivern had some concerns with it. When we most recently took this item up, and which I think was last spring, maybe. I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But Mark, was it in the summer? Thank you, Councilor Valentin. So I know we took it up before, and then we tabled this. Probably here in my notes somewhere, but I don't, for some reason, see it. So go ahead, Marco. Sorry about that.
Right, so this property, the council had actually declared it surplus for sale. The sale, then the proposal of sale came back to council, and it was declined. We then went out back again for request for proposals, and in the law department's due diligence, Siddell and Siddell found that the property is recorded as having been taken by eminent domain for park purposes and having an Article 97 restriction. So at that point, we were prohibited from actually getting rid of the property, of selling the property, unless the Article 97 restriction is taken out, taken off of the property. And there's a process for that. You have to petition the general court of Massachusetts, and they approve these very often. But the executive branch of the state has a process by which they approve of that. The Department of Energy Resources, not the Department of Energy Resources. Department of Energy and Environmental Affairs has a protocol by which they advise the general court for this. And if you don't follow their protocol, if for whatever reason a city or a town lobbies the general court, they get it passed without them following the protocol, then the executive branch will withhold all grants from Energy and Environmental Affairs forever. So suffice to say that everyone follows this protocol. The protocol is the following. It's that you replace the Article 97 land that you are removing off of your inventory by placing the restriction on another piece of property. And they look to replace it threefold in land, in monetary value, and in recreational value. So that means that you shouldn't be replacing a park with a much smaller park, and generally they actually want you to provide even more space. Their rule of thumb is 3 times over, but they do have flexibility there, understanding that not all communities may have that amount of space. but they do look for additional land. Monetary value, so if, the sale price for a park is $100, that you're not just pocketing the $100, but that you're investing that in the new Article 97, open space or parkland. And the last one is recreational value. So assume that you're selling a baseball diamond that is well used, that you're not replacing it with a bowling alley. The thinking is if your community really needs a baseball diamond and people are using it, then you are providing at least as equal recreational value. In this case, it's kind of easy to meet all three, although it's not like we have a lot of options on the shelf, but it is a small piece of land that we're trying to take out the restriction for. This will probably not fetch that much amount of money. The past proposal I think was somewhere around $7,000 or $7,500, something like that. So even if it was double that, we would just have to be able to make the case that we have invested or will be investing a similar amount of money in a substitute. And then the recreational value is kind of easy because it's this overgrown lot that is not used as part of the park on the corner at all. So local process for that is that for the local petition, the Parks Commission has to vote unanimously for this. The mayor has to agree, and the council also has to agree on the petition. And then it requires a 2/3 approval of the State House. The proposal that we've put before the council, because it's kind of off the shelf, is there is a plaza that we recently completed between the City Hall and Lyman Terrace. While there's a portion of that is owned by the Holyoke Housing Authority, there is a portion that the city currently owns, partially the parcel that was the former Bud, Ye Old Bud, and the other is a piece of parcel that is currently part of the parking garage. And so both of those combined are about 7,200 square feet, which is almost 3 times the size of the current parcel at 416 Appleton Street, which is about 2,500 square feet. The one at 416 Appleton can really unlock some value for one of the abutting properties. We know of at least 3 parties, all abutters, that would be interested in it to provide good-looking, well-paved parking for residents there. 2 of them the council saw last time when the proposals were being considered, and since then a third interested party that is looking to rehab a multi-story building that abuts 416 Appleton as well. So it seems like a pretty easy sell, this option to Energy and Environmental Affairs, and so it would start here at the local level. Where we left it off last time were 2 items that I would point out to. One is logistical, and I don't know what to call the other one in terms of policy that Councilor McGivern brought up. So on the logistical side, moving forward on this actually requires a public hearing. So I think even if we wanted to, I don't think we would be compliant by, even if the body wanted to vote on it now, we would be out of compliance if we were moving forward. We would have to advertise as a public hearing this item. So that's issue number 1. So if the council wanted to move on this in the future, we'll just have to deal with that logistically and figure that out. Item number 2, and probably most importantly and most germane to the policy conversation, is, and of course Councilor McGivern can explain this better, but I'll do a quick summary. He was the ward councilor at the time where that corner park was created, and by his own recollection, that property was specifically excluded from the vote for eminent domain acquisition. And so Councilor McGivern had asked us at the last time that we talked about this to look deeper into the history of this because he had a very specific recollection. We went back, looked at the documents, and forwarded those documents. I have no reason to contradict anyone's memory. I wasn't around, and I was 6 years old. So I barely knew what my neighborhood looked like, much less what Holyoke was. fortunately or unfortunately, what we have as a written record is pretty solid. It depicts the property being acquired by eminent domain with a recorded vote of 13-0 with two absences. What made the history of this murky was that seemingly after it being recorded as an Article 97 restriction, recorded as it being taken, in the following years, then the prior owner wasn't paying taxes, and then someone said, well, how come they're not paying taxes? Let's foreclose on this for back taxes. Well, the owner wasn't paying taxes because he had just been taking the property by the city. So the city pursued it by through land court, and ultimately, I guess the debt was forgiven. But that led to our actions to declare it surplus without realizing that it had been originally taken, or at least that's what is recorded in the Registry of Deeds with the supporting documents, taken by eminent domain. So that's my spiel.
Councilman McGivern?
Just real quick, for the purpose of at some point selling the property to someone who wants to develop and use it as parking, because there is certainly a need for parking with the amount of multifamily structures in that immediate neighborhood, is fine with me. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with, declaring it surplus. The transfer of this Article 97, and this is, I think, the last time I'm going to say this, is what I don't understand, and it's very simple, and I think Marcus just made my argument. The building that was on 416, LaPointe's Market, burnt down in had a fire in 1975. It was gutted in 1976, and I don't think it was ever occupied again, and eventually it was torn down. The city took the property that became People's Park, which is not 416 and 418, but is more so towards Beech Street, towards the corner of Beech and Appleton. And as I said, in the late 80s, with a great group of neighbors who led the charge and worked with the city, designed and developed People's Park, and just wanted a place where young mothers and fathers could go with their children, sit, people could go out, read a book, sit around, talk, a very passive, type of park. And when we were meeting, I said, this vacant property here at 416, 418, it'll never be developed, because it can't be developed because of the dimensions, and too much time had passed for it to be to rebuild for the building that was there. I said it'd be nice if the city took over that property and extended the park into a bigger and nicer for the whole neighborhood. It made sense. The city agreed, and that's when we attempted at that point to locate the owner. Well, the funny thing is Mr. Alvin bought the property in 1987 and told everybody he was going to develop it. It's an undevelopable property. Okay, so that's where the games began. And when the city found out at that point, now there's more than one parcel here, so I think whatever got recorded is the mistake. But when the city found out, that what Mr. Alvin was trying to do was get a bang out of the dollar for whatever he bought the property for, because I don't think he paid, I have it here somewhere, Mr. Chairman, but I'll get it in a second. I don't think he paid that much for it. Did a little work on the property, and this is how I found out, because a tree company took down a big oak on the back of the property, and that company never got paid for it. Well, if the city took the property, and if the city declared it parkland under Article 97, why, from 1988 to 2008, did the city tax the property? It wasn't a mistake. We didn't take the property because we backed out of it, because we didn't want to deal with it. The mayor said, no, we're not going to deal with, a court action similar to the ones that have taken place with, and I think most of you know how I feel about eminent domain in the past. So we said, let him keep the property and do what he wants with it. And it was declared surplus, at some point when we decided to see if we could sell it to some of the abutters. And it just, it's more a memory, because I'm looking at this timeline here, and this timeline supports my memory. It's not Article 97, never was. Albeit, if it makes sense to, because some mistake was made then and we can use that to our advantage, I'll leave that up to the committee. But that's my position.
Well, I appreciate that. I just for my part, I think I just have to go on the written record. So I guess, Marcos, what's your pleasure is about this property? Should we have I take it, when you need to have a public hearing scheduled? And
Yeah, I mean, it,
probably move on that, and then at the next, maybe schedule for the next meeting or two, whatever it is, assuming we have time to.
sure, I mean, finding the most appropriate time for a public hearing so we can move this forward. In parallel, we would then ask the Parks Commission to also take it up, and we would have to present to them. Honestly, I hadn't really bothered them with it because I didn't know where the council wanted to go with this. But then we would follow that in tandem so that then we can provide it to our legislative delegation.
Well, I mean, just for my part, I think the time is, I mean, whatever happened with the other things have already happened, so we just have to move that forward. There's no sense in having that parcel just sit there. I think when those three abutters, however many there are, could really use the parking in that. I mean, I know they could use the parking, and we just passed the ordinance the other day the ordinance change to allow for permit parking only on that part of Pine Street. So that's gonna possibly tighten it up even more. So I think having off-street parking would be a real plus. That's just my take. So at this point, I don't think there's much more we can do, but we have our arms around it as well as we can at this point. I mean, with the exception of Councilor McGivern's background, which we have no reason to question, but I think I'm just trying to find a way to get that little that sliver of land, get that redeveloped somehow for the use of the abutters. That's my only take on it.
Well,
Councilor Sullivan.
yeah, I agree, and I like the fact that there's a way to do this without tripling the amount of space for another park. I said it a couple of times. We can't maintain the parks we have without tripling the size of another one. Everywhere I look, we're struggling to maintain what we have without adding to it. Just this week, looking at the conservation webpage, how much open space we already have in Holyoke. I forget the exact number, 6,000 acres. To continue adding to what we can't maintain just seems kind of frivolous at this point. So to be able to do one separate of the other makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and this is such a small little piece, but it's really important to those property owners. So, Councilor Valentin.
Thank you. Thanks for doing the research on this and the investigative work of going back to 1988 and all that. I've been receiving questions about 416 Appleton for probably at least 2 years. So anything that we can do to move this forward, I think would be very much appreciated by many folks. Clearly 416 Appleton will never be a park, and at this point it's contributing to blight in that area. So if we can definitely move forward with the public hearing and any other requirements that we need to be paying attention to so that we can finalize this, that's what I would be in favor of. Thanks.
Okay, so why don't we just get a motion to table this, and then I'll at some point set up a public hearing.
Yeah, motion to table this item and set up a public hearing.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's tabled. Let's see. Next on the hit parade, this is item 9 in the real world, but this is item 8 on the sheet. If I could motion on the agenda, if I could get a motion to take this up table, please.
Motion to take up item number 9 off the table for discussion.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor? Aye. That the council extend the order approved by the city council in August of 2016, which authorized the transfer of the properties listed below, which I will read off, and, which included 501 South Bridge, which is land, and another one such as says South Bridge Street, which is land, then there's 501 Bridge, which is land, and one says Cabot Street, which is just land, another one says 61 Cabot, which is land. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 piece is 163 Sergeant, which is a vacant building. The 7th piece is 160 Middle Water, which is a vacant building. So these 7 pieces of land, the proposal is, let's see, transfer the properties to the Holyoke Redevelopment Authority for consideration of $1. The authorization would not be applicable to the property of 160 Middle Water, as this transfer already occurred. The original transfer authorization and this extension are in accordance with the HRA's urban renewal plan. Marcos, okay, so the plan is to take these, did I count them right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these 7 pieces of property to transfer them from city ownership to HRA. So Marcos, take it away.
Right, so these 7 pieces of properties were approved for transfer to the redevelopment authority. One of them, which is 160 Middle Water Street, the redevelopment authority already recorded their name and sold it to Western Mass Demolition. That's the former Hallmark site. Maybe we can go into the next, yeah, that one. It was a 1.4 acre site. It had received some hazardous waste mitigation, asbestos mitigation, although actually the asbestos was still there when it was sold. Western Mass Demolition does a lot of work in the city and around the city, so they saw a lot of value in having a staging and business site here, and at the same time they were taking on the liability of the site. Some prior estimates that the city had put the liability at, actually don't remember what the number was, like $500,000? In excess of $500,000. So the transaction was for $1, but we were able to leverage that to be able to support business and get that liability off the city's books and off the redevelopment authority's books. At the same time, helping out neighboring businesses, there was a lot of entry of vagrants in the area. It was not a safe situation there. Neighboring business, United Paper Box, is the direct abutter to the north. We would constantly receive complaints from them. So they're very happy that the new company's already come in. They're following their development schedule. They've already demolished the building. They've put up a new fence. They've started clearing it out. And that area is starting to see development. As you know, the council approved the sale of 1 Cabot Street. That's soon to close, but that same buyer already acquired 2 other mill properties just north of United Paper Box, and there's already tenant uses that will be coming in for special permits soon to start seeing activity
just
there.
Hold on a second. Which one on here is 1 K?
That's the last one on the list that's crossed out. I'm kind of explaining why that one will not be germane to your approval, because it's no longer city-owned. It's no longer HRA-owned. It's been privately sold. So of the 7 that were transferred 2 years ago, that one has already gone through a cycle of marketing it, securing someone to take on the development project. So what remains on the list is 6 properties. The first 5 are vacant pieces of land, and all of these are what's considered Area 9 of the Urban Renewal Plan, around the Cabot Street entry from Chicopee. So the first 3 on South Bridge Street, they're on the northern end of South Bridge Street, just before the state's rail line. It's vacant pieces. Those are 3 vacant pieces of land. And then the next 2 are on the corner of Cabot and, is that Clemente? Yeah, the corner of Cabot and Clemente. And they're surrounded by other vacant land. The 6th property, 163 Sergeant Street, is the former armory, the Holyoke Armory. And as you know, it remains vacant. And so we're looking for authorization from the council to transfer that over to the redevelopment authority again. The reason why we're seeking this again is because in the original order, and I believe this is the only time it's been done, there was a 2-year sunset clause on that. And so earlier in September, I think it was, early September, or was it August? The order expired. So the redevelopment authority, as of right now, does not have site control because it lacks that authorization to transfer. Therefore, the redevelopment authority could not negotiate any deals involving these sites. So we're looking to extend the order, even better if it's your pleasure, to make the order permanent, so that the redevelopment authority could negotiate projects with this without running into a timeline issue of being in the middle of a negotiation and then having to get authorization again. Or a third alternative, just having it be more than 2 years.
Okay. And is that the same, is the same true for these the first 5 properties? Did they each have a sunset clause?
Yeah, this whole packet of 7 was approved originally with 2 years.
Oh, I
So we're seeking authorization for the 6 that are still in city hands, with either no sunset clause or a longer duration sunset clause. We'll take the 2 years if that's all we'll get, but it is inconvenient.
All right. Council Sullivan, I'm sorry.
A couple of questions. Marcos, so Holyoke Redevelopment Authority, can they do industrial properties?
Yes,
Okay, and so it's, EDIC cannot do residential properties?
that's correct.
But the Redevelopment Authority can do industrial properties?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just wait till we get to item 9. Or 10, whatever it is.
Yeah, we are, okay, we are on item 9 now, so you just got misnumbered. So I'll just update this agenda. All right, well, I guess I'm of the, Joe, did you ever, okay, yeah, I thought you had your hand up. Yeah,
I was just going to suggest a sunset clause of 5 to 6 years or more if the committee so sees fit. The only reason for a sunset clause, I agree with Marcus, 2 years was too short, is if down the road a property is never developed, that the city has a way of taking the property back without the redevelopment authority voting on it, just to keep the windows open.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, but not really for that. I mean, because we don't really hear anything until, I mean, I guess we could all, some of us go to HRA meetings, but a lot of us don't. And I know those are public meetings, but sometimes just it gets lost in the shuffle with all the other meetings, and we kind of want to hear what's going on with these parcels, but yet I don't want to tie your hands. Certainly, I mean, we'd like to have these sold. With that said, can I ask you a couple of questions, Marcos? Just on, since you brought up One Cabot, where does that stand right now? And then with these 6 parcels, do we have any one waiting in the wings?
Yeah. So in chronological order, One Cabot, we should be closing within the next month or less. We're actually almost ready to close, and the buyer suffered a quite serious traffic accident. So that sent us back a little bit. He's doing well, considering. And his team has continued the due diligence process, but John just spoke to him on Friday.
Sorry
And
to hear that.
we're almost ready to close on that one.
So
And he's very anxious to close. He's already bought more property around it.
So that whole lawsuit, is that now, he was being sued, I think, by, there's some litigation going on, or something going on with the tenant, if I recall?
Yeah, I can't remember if that was dropped. There was a hearing on it.
It was dismissed.
It was dismissed, yeah.
It was dismissed, yeah.
Oh, okay, so I didn't have any updates on that either, so it's kind of nice to, so that was dismissed, and now and we sold that, just remind me the sale price on that.
200,000, yeah.
200,000, okay. And this is a gentleman from maybe Rochester?
Concord, New Hampshire.
Concord, New Hampshire, okay, I
Yep.
thought it was, okay, it's Concord, New Hampshire. All righty. Okay, so that's some,
So, a quick question.
sure.
I didn't
Councilman
realize,
Gibbon?
I thought the sale went through. Is it still occupied by a tenant?
It is.
One or two tenants?
Is that a trick question? It's
No.
specialty loose leaf.
Well, at one
I was like, wait a
time, the tenant was renting out space to the
Oh, to the bridge contractor, right?
bridge contractor, not the bridge contractor, to the state.
Right, to Mass DOT. Yeah, that project is ended.
Yeah, I just don't know if Mass DOT still had a presence and why Mass DOT didn't pay the rent to the owner of the property as to the
Right.
tenant of the property. Is the tenant paying utility bills and taxes and?
I'm honestly not aware. They are? Oh, John is, he's
Yeah,
saying yes.
They're paying their monthly rent and concurrent with their utilities.
Taxes?
Taxes, I'm not sure. I don't believe there is any tax bill generated for that property, but they do pay a monthly rent.
Do you know how much the rent is?
It's about $2,200,
Or how many square feet?
substantial, about 200,000.
You can see why they're still there.
10
Thank you,
cents-
Mr. Chairman.
10 cents a square foot.
Yeah, that's just a good refresher on how crazy that deal's been for over these years, but it's good to hear, that's good news about the closing, it's bad news about the buyer, I hope he gets well quickly.
And your second question was,
Yep.
is there interest
Yep.
on any of these properties? So
Yep.
we don't have immediate interest on the vacant land, and definitely nothing firm. On the Armory, there is some interest. We have submitted a application to the CPA committee, Community Preservation Act, for historic preservation of that building, to start doing pre-development of the Armory in conjunction with a developer. There is no agreement yet. We're still in initial conversations, but we were in a critical path that if we wanted to get some subsidy for the initial and high-risk actions of doing pre-development, then we had to submit something now. But that interest is very live, and it's already been brought forward to the HRE board.
Okay, so the interest to the Armory building is, I missed that part, so there's an application to the Community Preservation Act?
The redevelopment, so because we staff redevelopment authority as well, so as a redevelopment authority, there was an application that went in from the redevelopment authority for CPA funds to help in the redevelopment of the Armory. We can't actually act on it unless we have site control. So we submitted it hoping that we would get reauthorized.
Okay, so the hope is to use CPA funds to,
advance the design and pre-development of the site, anything from layering financing, further studying the structural stability and engineering needs of the site, and anything architectural of the building. That will lead to its redevelopment and reuse.
I'm a little bit familiar with that because I'm on that CPA committee from representing the council. I believe the wording on that, I'm doing this from memory, is as a buyer incentive.
A developer
for
incentive, correct?
50
Yep.
Developer incentive for 50,000.
150, I think it was.
150,
Yeah.
okay, well, we'll see.
Right,
well-
I can expand on that a little more. The committee, they met again tonight, but their meeting was at 6 o'clock, so I couldn't be in both places. But they seem, the mood seemed to be advanced, but they have a lot of concerns about what type of, restrictions would have to be put on the developer, restrictions and stuff like that once money's got applied to it. So there was some research going on as far as that goes. It wasn't by any means a done deal, and all it will do at this point is advance it as an eligible project. That does not mean it will get chosen as a project. It'll be free to compete with others as well.
Yeah, we'll have that debate here at some point.
Yes, and it would have to,
Yeah.
and then that project would have to get approved by the council.
All right, okay, well, that's all. Well, I mean, what's the pleasure of the committee? I guess I'm of the opinion that I kind of like Councilor McGivern's idea, maybe a 5 years.
5 years.
5 years sunset clause. Marcos, how's that sound, 5 years?
Sounds great.
All right, so but that's my take on it. Okay, so,
I make a motion to extend the order approved by the council on the 2016th with a 5-year sunset clause on these properties.
Second.
on the motion to extend the sunset clause to 5 years effective, when will it be effective, Marcos, of August of 2018? So it'll be effective,
You ask me, I'll tell you January 1st next year.
no, well, when the other one expired, but I'm sure, yeah, maybe. But it expired in this past August?
It said 2016, does it? It's August 2nd, 2016, we authorized?
So it would be
Right, so
effective,
it's 5 years from August 2nd of 2018.
2018?
okay, so effective, a 5-year sunset, effective August 2nd, 2018 is a motion that's been made and seconded. So that would sunset then in August of 2023. So we're hopeful that there'll be some good news from HRA on these parcels between now and then. On the motion, on discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Council Sullivan says,
I'm going to reserve until I find out how long HRA is going to exist in its existing form, or HEDIC is going to exist in its
I see.
existing form.
I see. All right, so 3 to 1. 3 to 1 extended. All right. Okay. Let's go to, if I could take a motion to take, what is this? Did I miss something?
We're going on number 10 now, but it says 9 on the agenda.
Yeah, no, but what do I?
Clay Street, do we have that? I didn't see that in there.
No, I had asked that this be put on the agenda. It doesn't look like it made the agenda. So this will go for another day. Marcos, this was in the, I meant to have this on the agenda. Apparently it didn't make it. So this is for 144 High. So we'll take that up when we meet again down the road. So that's that one. And then here is, okay, we did 86 Beech. So that's, did we do 86 Beech? I shouldn't be saying.
Yes,
we
we
did.
did.
Okay, I shouldn't be saying things without double checking. Okay, so 86 Beech. We took that up and approved that. Okay, if I could get a motion for number 10, please.
I make a motion to take up item number 10 by Councilor Sullivan.
Second.
Motion made in second, take item number 10 off the table. All in favor? Aye. Council Sullivan, order that HRA and HEDIC meet with the DGR committee to discuss the possibility of and benefits to merging the two entities into one body. And we took this up on 9/10. At the same time, we had a letter sent to us by Marcos Murrow, dated 9/10.
Maybe we can take 9 and 10 or 10 and 11 as a package.
Oh, yes, if we could.
I take up items number 10 and 11 as a package.
Motion made a second, take up items 9 and 10 as a package. All in favor? Aye. And number 11 is a communication from Marcos Murrow combining HRA and HEDIC. So I think what we'll do is, Marcos, why don't here's your letter, which we have. Did you want to, do you want to expand upon this at this point, or are you satisfied with the letter itself?
Sure, I can expand on it. So the order on looking at, and actually I should probably start by saying I did invite both chairs here, Carl Eager, who chairs HEDIC, had a competing meeting in an abutting town, and Pat Duffy's in Boston related to her work. So they send their regards, but they were not able to be here today. This is something that we started looking at several years ago, which say 2013, 2014, for a couple of reasons, and Councilor Sullivan alluded to it earlier in the questioning. The redevelopment authority's legal authorization from the state encompasses a lot more uses than that of HEDIC's. The redevelopment authority can do residential, institutional, commercial, and industrial projects. They're really not limited by the type of project it is. Their framework, however, is governed by the Department of Housing and Community Development in a much stricter way, in which you have to prove that the area in which you're intervening has certain economic, what's the word I'm looking for? Negative economic factors. And so you create an urban renewal plan for each intervention, and it is a more stricter process for approval because it provides more power, right? Once the plan is approved, you can work on it over time. Like we have with ours, it's a 20-year plan to do acquisitions and other actions. HEDIC is much more limited in scope in that it's, in the legislation, it's industry, so it's commonly referred to as manufacturing, industrial uses. But the way that they can go into projects, it's a little bit more flexible. They can do something what's called an economic development plan. They can negotiate terms of a plan and then present it to the city. And once the city approves that very specific plan, which can just encompass one site anywhere in Holyoke, then they can move forward on it with whatever conditions else that would have to be arranged between a private party and the city. We started looking at somehow merging these two because it seemed that the long-time practice of using HEDIC for economic development, the reasoning behind it had eroded significantly over time. HEDIC as a property owner had very few parcels left that weren't already included in their renewal plan. HEDIC was also serving and continues to serve as a valuable funding stream for the Office of Planning and Economic Development and subsidizing salaries. But in truth, there's an end game to that. Like there's an end date to it at some point. It's drawing too many resources, and I've made this position well known to the council and to the mayor. The fiscally responsible thing to do is start reducing that subsidy of the office, or the trade-off, right? There are trade-offs in life. The trade-off is those assets will eventually go down to zero. So the asset base has reduced for HEDIC. And third, I would point out that the loan program that had kind of been the bread and butter of HEDIC for, beyond the real estate portion, had lost its potency and relevancy in the modern economy. There's a loan program that can provide to about $100,000 in gap financing and take a second position on a loan. So maybe 30 years ago, that was a good amount of money for small to medium sized manufacturers that still had a gap in financing. The reality nowadays is that a piece of equipment will cost much more than that, and you're either going to be able to secure financing or you won't with more traditional forms of manufacturers. So it begs the question: either we significantly transform the reach and the goals of that loan program, or it just won't really work for most cases. The last sizable loan that the HEDIC did was to the redevelopment authority to provide gap financing for that project for the cleanup, and thus far it's being paid back. So it is something that we've looked at very favorably to try to merge them, because really what we're trying to merge is the purse of HEDIC that still has some sizable assets in cash and still in some real estate, At this point, it's just under 2 million, I want to say. In total value, it's just under 2 million. And then HEDIC has one of the most important mandates in terms of economic development in the city, and breadth in how they use these real estate tools, yet it doesn't have funding. In the measure that it does have funding, it was provided by HEDIC itself, not separate from the Parsons loan. HEDIC provided a $100,000 injection to the redevelopment authority. So that's my long-winded way of getting back to the letter then, which says, which kind of all of this that I've said here, I've kind of said before in one fashion or another, which is, yes, as staff, as an administration, we're very interested, and we still may be, in merging HRA and HEDIC. Over the years, board members have shared some, I'll use the word generally, concerns. It's not opposition. It's just, consider that in life there are trade-offs, and HEDIC has the ability of doing projects a little bit easier, even if it means having to staff 2 boards, and that has its own trade-offs on the staff level as well. So recently what we've been trying to look at is, all right, if we were to keep both boards, is there a way of kind of getting at everything that we would like to see accomplished? Primarily a capital injection into the redevelopment authority. That remains a very high priority in order to accomplish more projects. So I'll just throw out a number out there, like as if HEDIC could provide a $500,000 capital injection to the HRA or something of that sort. That would provide more funding to start pre-development work on more properties. In parallel, keeping HEDIC, and this goes to what I was saying in the letter, but re-engineering the loan program so that it's not targeted at users that would be buying pieces of machinery at over $1 million, but really more towards the startup or just beyond startup and into the expansion mode of companies that either manufacture and produce original product or directly support them. And so that is a very different landscape and decision-making process on the business side that, to be completely frank, we don't fully understand yet. And we're trying to get some consultant help on, potentially even just free technical assistance, because it is a very interesting space to support the startup and initial growth operations. And what it allows is to dedicate the scarce resources of HEDIC, right? The $100,000 or less, $50,000 resource, where it may be an insignificant drop in the bucket for a bigger company, to be game-changing for small companies, right? To start the first 10 jobs on a company, and somewhere in Holyoke can actually make us very competitive region-wide. So that's kind of what we're looking at now at HEDIC. That doesn't mean that we've discarded anything else, but we've certainly, we put out kind of an idea and a proposal to board members. We heard concerns, and we're reacting to that by looking at, okay, what other options do we have? Do we absolutely have to eliminate HEDIC if we can still have a capital injection to HRA that allows us to scale up our work there, but yet use these idle assets in a more creative and productive way?
So I appreciate all that. I'm going to turn it over to Councilor Sullivan since this is his order, but can you just explain to me about the $2 million again? I didn't quite grasp that. So where's that number derived? $2 million
It's a total number. It's a total value of all assets that HEDIC owns. So it's either cash deposits or value of expected value of real estate.
So what does HEDIC have in cash deposits right now? Is that public information?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So what does HEDIC have in cash deposits?
It's in the vicinity of 1.6 million, and then there's a note, and I'd have to go back and verify these numbers, but that's the ballpark.
Part of that 1.6 would be the note owed, right?
And in addition to the note owed, there's the HRA note, and then some real estate, as Marcos mentioned.
As far as real estate, right now, HEDIC owns an 11-acre property off of Whiting Farms Road at the end of, what is that, Sullivan Road? So that's right next to the ISO. we estimate that about 6 acres of that is developable. And then it's an 8-acre parcel right off of,
A couple, maybe 1 to 2 usable off of Kelly Way, undeveloped land. I'm sorry, undeveloped land off of Kelly Way.
so those are the 2 real estate holdings at this point.
Okay, and then the rest is cash, I assume.
Yep.
Okay. Al Sullivan?
So, the part that's getting me is you've got these 2 separate groups that should have the same mission. Both groups are staffed by your office. Both boards are cross-pollinated also. There's members on one board and members on the other board. But you've got HEDIC sitting there with this bright, shiny toolbox, and none of the tools are being used. And HRA has got a lot of projects that they could be moving forward, and they have no tools. We've got a lot of the same people, the same administration, the same basic goals, and it just seems to be in gridlock. Still, one group would have to go to the other group to get some, to get a loan approved, when it's really the same people, the same mission. And as I understand it, the study's been going, the talk about doing this has been going on for years. This is the second time now that the board chairman of both groups haven't been able to make it here because of prior commitments. How long does it take to get on with this and just get an answer to this and start using these tools? That's what's bothering me.
Yeah, and to be completely honest, it's not that the study has been ongoing every day since then. And it has been a back burner issue just because some things have to be to complete other work, and I know that's very unfortunate. It's not the answer you want to hear, but at times it definitely has been a back burner issue. It's become a front burner issue this year, particularly to address the issue of, all right, if HEDIC is to remain, it's a vital question that we need answered, right, one way or another. If it is to remain, what is the purpose, what is the call, what is the mandate to HEDIC? Because there's no question that, and look, this wasn't my idea, right? Like my initial idea was, let's just merge it, let's just go for it, let's just do HRA and call it a day. But I am reacting to the valid feedback that we got from very smart people saying, well, consider the fact that the regulatory framework over HEDIC is actually much more flexible, and it'll be in your interest to consider those things. And I mean, it's true. It wasn't my idea, but it is accurate. And so that kind of challenges me as a department manager and all the staff to say, okay, so how can we think creatively about these things? We know that what we've been doing for many decades won't necessarily carry for the decades ahead, but that doesn't mean we can't tweak it. And to your point, you're absolutely right. None of that discounts anything you just said. I wholeheartedly agree that there needs to be a capital injection, more juice, as you said, to the redevelopment authority. I think there's a way of doing both, particularly if the mandate to HEDIC is competing in a space that doesn't draw in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per transaction, right? If you're working in a space that works in the, as little as 5,000 to 50,000, or even as high as 100 on the top end, you could probably do a lot of damage in the good way, and stretch your dollar farther, while still doing a large capital outlay injection to the HRA. And the best problem we could run into is we do a capital injection to the HRA, we find out we're doing so much progress, and we blow through $500,000 and we see so much progress, then we decide to do it again. Like we always have the availability of making that decision again, but knowing that we don't have the crystal ball, we have to start somewhere, right? So that's why I throw out I'm just throwing out a number that I say $500,000. Maybe we want to start with $250,000 or $750,000. We started with $100,000 a couple of years ago, and that allowed the HRA to do something, anything, right? With $100,000, now you can start. You can acquire land and you can transfer it back and get it and get a sale. You can carry land. You can do appraisals. And the HRA has been able to do some projects. The more marquee one being the Parsons paper cleanup, but we have to ramp up the volume on that. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone to HEDIC meetings, and they go into executive session, and I'm told I have to leave. I go to HRA meetings, they go into executive session, we have to leave. Then we see the minutes of the meetings come forward 4 years later, 5 years later. There's nothing going on that should be that confidential, right? There's really nothing going on. And to sit there and have millions of dollars that could be being used to bring new business into Holyoke, developers into Holyoke, working to increase our tax base, and to have it sitting there idle is just driving me nuts. So, you know, what do we got to do to get these two boards off their butts? It's that simple.
I mean, if the
Once
question,
again, they can't be here.
if the question is directed to me, I don't think it's a matter of the board's not working hard enough. You have to, I mean, and I know you realize this, that they're staffed by one office that has, you know, limited resources, and we have a lot of stuff on our plate. So, you know, as I said, defining a more concrete role for HEDIC in a more modern economy is on our front burner now, and it's something that we're doing. But, you know, this stuff also requires resources, you know, so we're playing Tetris with the little resources that we have to leverage everything to get more resources, get a good plan going, so that when I get asked very important questions by the council, I can categorically answer them and tell you, yes, we have a high degree of certainty that this path will be fruitful. I couldn't tell you that today by the very suggestions that I brought forward. I need to be able to confirm some of these assumptions that they actually pan out.
Okay, so time-wise, how long do you think it's really going to be before we can get an answer on what we're going to do with this two-headed?
Well, if it's specifically about a merger, I can't categorically answer that there would be a merger, right? So what I'm trying to get at is, if there isn't a merger, what would that look like? Right now, I have no funding really to pursue the type of consulting work that I think we would need. I'm close on getting a commitment from Mass Development.
You would if there was a merger.
Well, that predisposes that the board would want to fund something like that specifically themselves. I'm close to getting this significant assistance from the state through Mass Development for that, which very well may require a match from something like HEDIC or the HRA. But, you know, I try to shake all the trees before I do that.
Well, what's your pleasure at this point?
I could.
I'm sorry, Councilman McGivern.
As the only member of either body that we're talking about, I'd just like to say a few things, but more so as a city councilor. Councilor Sullivan makes some good points, and Marcus has some wonderful answers, and I think there's somewhere in the middle some not compromised ground, but some middle ground that we have to reach, and we have to reach quick, because the most important thing is that we use what assets we have to massage, to develop, to look for new business, to look for new growth, to look for all those jobs and tax and enhancing the tax base that we all want. It's not as simple, though, I think, as just merging the two bodies, and I like to talk a little bit about that, then try to clarify a few things a little differently that Marcus said. The redevelopment authority is, and in each body is confirmed by the city council. The redevelopment authority, though, is 5 members, 1 member appointed by the governor, who we do not confirm, 4 members appointed by the mayor. We do have and have had 1 city councilor on that from since the beginning. It's restricted to the area in the redevelopment and the economic development plan itself, which is not the way HEDIC works. And it can only work within that area. However, it's a very broad area. As a matter of fact, when that plan was approved by first the city council after being passed through us, it was the largest, and I think still the largest plan in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I think that says something for itself. HEDIC began with no assets. Now we're going back to the 70s and Mayor Prue. HEDIC is self-made. Those revolving funds, the $2 million, the cash, the real estate, with the one exception, but that's not a bad exception, is all from different projects that the city did through HEDIC. And that's where I'd like to start, because it's not HEDIC doing projects, it's the city giving HEDIC to do projects. The city is not giving HEDIC a project in 6 years. It's not HEDIC. HEDIC can't do anything without the mayor proposing, wherever the project comes from, and the economic development plan being approved by this body. It's not HEDIC's choice. And I've said this time in and time out. We need that body to be given projects. That body can work anywhere within the city. Now, it wasn't the state that said HEDIC couldn't do commercial property. Just look at the Bob Gilbert's company up on Balboa Road. That's a HEDIC project. Have anybody been on Kelly Way lately? Did anybody go up to the grand opening for O'Connell's? Kelly Way is a HEDIC project. Mayock's company is probably one of the biggest projects that I was ever thrilled about when Freddie Rosenkrantz uplifted his project from Springfield, talked to us in Holyoke, and we said, Freddie, we want you. All because Springfield wanted to build a ballpark. We got the second largest dental manufacturing tools in the country in Holyoke. And with that project, we sold him 10 acres, and he eventually helped but sold off and developed Homewood Suites, HEDIC projects. The track record of HEDIC is success, and it has been since the 1970s. The revolving fund, Mike Murphy is our member from the banking industry itself, and gap financing is simple. We take a big chance on gap financing. We have no collateral. If it goes under, such as 1 Cabot Street, it goes under. HEDIC gets burnt. The banks have something to fall back on, a piece of machinery, a piece of property, a piece of something. We're second, sometimes third fiddle in line. By the time it gets to us what we're owed, it goes out the window. We haven't lost too many loans over the last 3 decades. One was 1 Cabot Street, and that's why I've always expressed an interest in the sale of that property and recouping some of that money. And another one was a smaller loan, but it was a small company down, an etching company down in the Canal District somewhere. So HEDIC has got the tools, HEDIC has got the assets. Do we need both? I don't know, but we need both to operate. Redevelopment Authority was created in 2012. There's no one here to speak. Is there anything to speak of? Projects?
Yeah, Parsons, I mean, look, I'm not gonna turn this into a back and forth, but to say
No,
that the redevelopment authority has done anything.
that's not where I'm going, Marcus, because I said I'm looking for a middle ground here. Because Parsons didn't go off without HEDIC given the money to take care of that project. And HEDIC could have done that project itself without the redevelopment authority. The office does most of the projects.
That's a question to Councilor McGivern. So if I understand this correctly, what HRA has really done is produced the redevelopment plan. Or Marcos, you can answer.
Well, and so the board produces the plan, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the board is approving the plan, then they're overseeing the implementation of it. So every project that has been done in conformance with the plan has been overseen by the board. So every real estate transaction, every grant submittal, the same stuff as HEDIC would have done in other projects, right?
Right. So it's served its purpose. Turn over the plan to HEDIC and dissolve HRA.
Regulatorily, that's not how it would have to work. We would have to create a brand new plan, even if it said the same thing.
HEDIC cannot handle a larger plan. HEDIC has to go one at a time. Could do it, most of it, but not the residential part. Now they're telling us not the commercial property part, even though we've done several commercial properties over the years, and the state never said anything about it.
But aren't they only coming one at a time? Or none
No,
of-
the redevelopment
or none
authority,
at a
redevelopment
time?
authority can, as long as it's within the plan, within not just the geographical boundaries, but within the plan itself, they can do a lot. I mean, we approved that plan, 4 or 5 years ago. Now, look at the make,
I'm full back circle again. Why does HRA still even exist? They made a plan, just turn the plan over to HEDIC.
So
I know what you're saying about getting $500,000, why does, we're back to the same thing, that
the powers encompassed in an urban renewal plan is granted on a redevelopment authority, which is a corporation created by Mass General Law 121B or C? B. The ones for HEDIC are defined in 121C, and they're not interchangeable. So the nature of an urban renewal plan cannot be handed over to an EDIC. It's a different type of corporation. So just like the city has rules that apply to it, the HRA has rules that apply to it. So you can't create a plan under 121B and then just say, all right, a 121C corporation is going to run it. A 121B corporation has to run the plan.
All right, so back to the same thing. If what I understand is nobody's bringing any projects to HEDIC, but HRA's got a whole list of projects, I don't get it.
I don't take that statement as fact. I mean, that's the councilor's opinion. HEDIC is working on a couple of projects right now. There is the 11 acre Whiting Farms Road property that we've done a pre-development project there. We just showed it to a private party last week. They may be interested enough to put in a proposal for that. That was a $40,000 action to do soil testings, surveying, conceptual renderings for the site that will allow to market it. We got a $50,000 grant through the Mass Clean Energy Center through HEDIC to potentially do an economic development plan involving having a biodigester in the city that could reduce the cost of operation for sludge management for the city, and also create cleaner energy and produce jobs and some revenue in the city. We just took care of 2 properties that also generated some income for HEDIC. So it's not that I just don't want to create the impression that there's some negligence with HEDIC. It's just that we have other tools. Well, no, but it can be easily interpreted by folks who are not, in the know, as everyone here, but they're watching at home, that, HEDIC is just idle because the administration just chooses not to provide projects. They're well suited for certain things, and HRA is better suited for others. And so, just like when you're cutting meat, you'll pick the knife that's best suited for that. We'll do that with HEDIC or the HRA. There are certain things that HRA is probably, not that they could not do, but it would be much harder. If we wanted to do a project, on Whiting Farms Road with the HRA, it would take us longer. It would be harder because the way that we would have to prove, I don't think there's even a guarantee that the state would allow us, but we would have to prove that somehow the economic conditions in Ward 5 are so bad that you would have to have a redevelopment authority plan. There is some likelihood that we would be denied because you would look at the economic conditions around it and the demographics, and the state would say, well, really, this is, where's the blight, where's the poor economic conditions, whereas the HEDIC doesn't necessarily have to prove that for the specific area, they just have to prove it for the municipality. And so we can move much quicker with local approvals to do a project there. Right. So when a project fits that bill, definitely we try to do that. The biodigester project, as an example of what I mentioned, is just outside the urban renewal plan area. We could have, more than likely, we could have gotten it approved by the state. But the steps that we would have had to take as staff and the public hearings for it would have eaten so much time and so much effort. It's just easier to go through HEDIC. We can start exploring the feasibility of it without even doing a plan. We can just go forward with it. And once there's something there to say, all right, there's an actual real estate transaction to be done, there's an actual investment that needs to be done, then we can go, then we can actually create a document that's actually only like 20 pages long instead of 200 plus, and get local approvals and move faster very quickly. So that's why I'm saying, like, you can do one or the other, but partially the deals haven't been there for Hedic because we are so built out, right? Because of that past success, it means there aren't a lot of vacant pieces of land. But then the financing tool is less relevant in the current economy, and that's what we need to tweak. There may be other real estate transactions that Hedic may be well suited for, but that's why true economic planning for that has to take place now, and that's what we're trying to secure. That type of consulting that can identify and vet some of the assumptions and ideas that we're considering.
I could finish where I was, where Mr. Sullivan had a question. It was a hell of an answer that Mr. Morero gave you. And Marcus, I'm on your side here, we're not going, side by side here.
We're all on the same, we're all
I
on the
said
same side.
several years we haven't been given a new plan, is what I said. Where do 11 acres come from? To deal with the dam.
Yep.
We're doing that for the G&E Authority, which this body approved. That's the last plan that we got. The bio thing, I think, it would be a great plan, but we still don't have a plan in front of us. All we did was fund the study when the lawyer said we could give you the money to do the study. We're waiting for that economic development plan. We don't have it. This body hasn't voted on it yet. You can't go anywhere until the city council approves it. So that's what I said. Okay? And I was trying to be, because I'm in agreement with part of what Mike is saying, and I really think we can do more, is the bottom line. And both bodies can do more. And believe me, this staff in this office does a wonderful job. But when you got three masters, and this should be room one, who should be sitting here this evening, and there shouldn't be just the chairman sitting here. There should have been every member of both bodies invited to be here, because there's some incredible people on these bodies that have a lot to offer and a lot of ideas, which I think I'd rather hear from them, about what they think, because Hedic to a T, we got some new members, has said, we'll vote to dissolve if that's what the city wants. Hedic is not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the city. Individually, one by one down the line. We've lost some good people over the last several years, and we've gained some good people. But that's the gist of it, is there's plenty of work out there. If we can't merge them, the state, it's state language that allows both these bodies to exist once the city agrees to creating them. But if we can't merge them, let's at least use both of them.
Well, right now, a lot of my questions have been answered. I'm still going to look very forward and see what we can do about bringing more projects forward and utilizing the tools we've got. But as far as the order goes, we've had the discussions. We all know what's going on. And I'm happy that it's been complied with right now.
Yeah, I'm just going to, since you brought up the topic, I said this before, and so I'm glad Councilor McGivern's here, relative to the project up the Whiting Farm, off of Whiting Farms Road behind Sullivan Road. I can assure you that there is probably going to be depending upon how this shakes out, there's going to be a lot of concern from certainly abutters in that neighborhood, that really you've got to be very sensitive to the residents. It's just I have to just re-emphasize with Councilor McGivern here that I would hope that whatever's going to happen, whether this is another one, because we saw the pre-development work, we saw the pins put in the ground, and then I was getting some calls about that, and then now that I understand that there may be a potential developer, how real that is, it wasn't expressed, but whatever it is, whoever the abutters, whatever happens up there, the abutters certainly have to be kept in the loop the whole time. I wouldn't want to have any kind of a meeting without, relative to that parcel, without their full involvement and knowledge. That's just a vital piece. As you as a city councilor, representing the whole city, are more than aware of the concerns of people on Woodland and South Martin, and regardless of your Hedic board membership, that's just an area of the city that's.
Absolutely, Councilor Bartley. And I've always told you, Ward 3, not only do I represent it, but I live in it, and it's one of my favorite wards.
Well, I know it's in the top 7. I think we talked about that before, but,
Oh, top 8.
but,
I think it represents the Ward 8 sometimes, too.
I mean, and it really concerns me when we're, I mean, I don't know if where that stands, but that, you know, we'll end it there. So we just have to, I mean, I just really have to be, I mean, hopefully we'll just really stay, you know, keep the public in the loop on that one.
Councilor McGivern, do you know why it's called Sullivan Way?
Am I backing myself into this one, Counselor Tallman? I don't know. Why is it called Sullivan Way? Are you asking, or you know why?
I do know why.
Yeah.
Because my father started a company called Advanced Offset Plate, which was in the mill down here downtown. And when they expanded up there, they built a sister company called Graph Coat. And I believe that project was assisted by HEDIC.
That might have been before my time, believe it or not. I haven't said that too often around here,
I
but
think the guy's name was
Yeah.
Bob Bateman at the time.
Yeah,
I
well,
remember Bob Bateman. Yeah.
Bob, I mean, I was on the board at the time, but I wasn't on HEDIC until '92.
Yeah.
The prior two mayors, Mayor Dunn and Mayor Prue, took the seat for government on HEDIC. And when I was acting mayor, I took the seat, and then Mayor Hamilton appointed me, and every mayor's appointed me since then.
Yeah, that was Graph Coat that built the building up there, and then they got bought by Kodak. And the rest is history.
That road needs some improvement.
Well,
We should
okay.
do it in memory of
Like
your
to
dad.
see it.
So at this point, we'll entertain a motion.
Yeah.
Council Tallman?
Yeah, I just want to, this has been I've learned a lot tonight. It's been a great discussion. I think, you know, Councilor Sullivan makes some great points, and thank you, Marcos, for the ability for me to help understand about the roles of both agencies and how important they are working together. And just said, as long as you keep an open mind, and I'd like to, as Councilor McGivern stated, hear from the other groups, hear from the people in those boards. You know, maybe we can contact them personally if we can't get them down here. But it's been a great discussion, and I think the bottom line is to whatever we can to grow our city and our community through development, through both these agencies, that we have to work hard to do that, to bring in the business and the tax dollars, you know, when the projects come up. So, thank you.
So, Councilor Sullivan, you would like this to be complied with?
Yep.
Make a motion that the order by Councilor Sullivan, item number 10, has been complied with.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
10 and 11, actually, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think 10,
We put them together.
Yep.
yeah, 11 is
Nine.
just received, but I'll put complied with on here. Okay, the last one, please. If I could just get a motion to take that off the table.
Motion to take off item number 12 by Councilor Bacon.
Second.
On the motion to remove number 12 from the table, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Order that the two-acre parcels on Mountain Road adjacent to the conservation area be placed into the conservation area. So I'm glad Marcos is here and John are here for this one. I did receive a communication from, so Mr. Smith was invited, and you know, he's just having some, you know, babysitter issues, and I told him just kind of hang back, but he did send me an email. So he sent a pretty lengthy email in when we last took this up in September. He sent an email in anticipation of that, and what I'm not, you know, I don't have my arms around. I don't have the assessor's lots where this is located. So Andrew did send an email, and it said, I said, just send me an update, since he couldn't get a babysitter in time. So, and he did. He said, just that I'll just read it. Just that it has been reclassified to a temporary solution, which is second best to a permanent solution, okay? And that the site has had its limits of disposal delineated, which frees up the area in the front, which encompasses the front two lots. I still don't know if a thorough planning process has unfolded to determine the best uses for these parcels. So there's, I think this is about the gun range. Okay, so these are parcels about the gun range. Councilor Bacon filed this order earlier this year. I think, yeah, I'm not really sure where, where this is going, but if there is a,
Couple of questions.
yeah, I'll recognize you in a second, Councilor Sullivan. So if there, hey, Mark, at this point, do we have, I have his email from September 5th, and he provided us a fair amount of detail, though. I don't want to read the whole thing, but we'll be here for 21 minutes, but there's some ecological issues he's looking at. He's going to meet with a consultant, and then he said that we, he was hoping to have a little clearer position by about this time, which is why I took this up again, but I don't know how clear it is. He raised a couple of questions. Can we allow for recreational access? Can we, as a city, can we sell those 2 lots? Because I think they may be buildable lots. So I wouldn't want to put, tie those up with conservation restrictions if they're potentially buildable lots in a fairly desirable neighborhood, so that maybe the city could realize some tax revenue. So that was my. Now hold on, Mike.
Yeah.
So that was. I mean that's my understanding, and so I'm just wondering where you as head of the planning board can sort of bring us up to speed from that perspective.
Sure. So part of this project predates me. A big part of the project I was responsible for, and Andrew's taken it, hopefully the last stage. So when my tenure started, this property had already been identified as a brownfield property that was problematic and needed to be cleaned up. And I'm not entirely sure how the decision came to be, but it seemed very reasonable that at the end of the cleanup, there would be enough land, about 4 acres, fronting Mountain Road, that could be developed, split up in 2-acre plots for new residential construction. So at the time that I started, I can't remember if it was already completed or underway, but one of the firing target sites was cleaned up. I think it was either cleaned up or underway. What you have was the firing pit where you stand, where you shoot, and then you had 3 target spots. So for a total of 4 areas where you would have a concentration of bullets that have lead and other stuff, right? Those bullets fragment over time. You get lead in the soil. So the plan was, when I took on this project, starting my tenure, that we would clean up the first and second targets, and then the pit where firing was happening. That's where most of the contamination, I think, was. I'm going by memory because I did not prepare for this one tonight. However, we ran into severely, just a lot more contamination than we had anticipated. So there was a lot more soil that we had to remediate and take out. We were very hopeful that in this last round of funding, and this is the first time we used community development block grant funds to hopefully close it out. It seems like, so this is where kind of my gap in my knowledge is, that it doesn't seem like we can get a permanent cleanup solution, because there's always going to be like some level of residue of heavy metals there. And I believe there might be a snake issue there as well, which may interplay, but I'm at the edge of my knowledge.
Yeah, so I was on the CDBG committee when this went through, and it went through the council here also. And I'm not sure that it was a stipulation, but definitely the way it was presented, I believe the number was $60,000 that was used out of CDBG money. And I'm doing this totally from recollection right now. And that those funds, the way it was presented was those funds were just temporary. They would be going back into the CDBG funds when the building lots sold, and that they would be saleable lots when this cleanup was done. And that's how the CDBG money went in, and that's the way it was presented and approved by the council, that those would be saleable lots and the money would be freed back up again for other projects. So to turn it all into conservation land now would be to kiss the 60 grand goodbye. and it's not what was agreed on with the CDBG groups.
Well, I think that's where Mr. Smith's email was going, is, and what I'm trying to get understanding from, maybe not tonight, I mean, my plan is just to take this up now, and I'll table it, well, hopefully we can table it so we get a little clearer picture from the planning department's perspective. What is it that you want to, that the planning department sees we can do with these two lots? So I'm wondering if you can.
I could give you a straight answer for that right now. I think if we could continue the plan that was established a long time ago to do 2 developable residential lots, that's perfectly fine. You know, there's not a lot of things that you can do up there because it's suburban zoning, it's single unit family housing. That's fine. The bigger issue is going to be what, after all is said and done with the environmental constraints there, right? The contamination, the endangered species, you know, is a contamination so bad that that groundwater is a concern? I'm not sure. From memory, I don't think there's a water service out there. It's you know, people are tapping into the groundwater. So, you know, if you're facing a situation where essentially it's near impossible to develop housing, then that may be, I'm talking completely out of school, I know it's on the record, but that may be where Andrew's going, that the constraints may be so tough, and you know, CDBG funds have already been used, then maybe it's another category that, again, speculative, that it leads to an outcome, and in this case it's a conservation outcome, and then you can close the project out that way. Honestly, I'm not sure. Andrew would have to respond to the more detailed aspects of the cleanup and the soil testing.
I think we might want to get Alicia Zoller's input on that as well.
All right, yeah, maybe we can take this up when we do CDBG stuff. Maybe that's the same night we can hear from her, because at this point, I don't know, I mean, I kind of just want to, I mean, Linda's not here, and I don't really want to move it to the full council without Linda being here, and.
Leave it tabled?
Yeah, but can we, so now you know this is before, it's been before us twice. I'm hopeful at some point we can have another one of our discussions, and we can, you know, arrange a time where we can take this up in committee and then move it along. But that'll depend upon what feedback you get from Andrew and what feedback you get from planning as well. So we don't, there's too many unknowns, and I certainly want to get the feedback from the Ward 5 counselor as well as to you know, what she's hearing from her constituents and what her position is on this. So I don't think there's any kind of a rush, but if you would just calendar that for at some point, sure, when you have a minute, and we can talk about it. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right, so okay, just get a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Second?
On the motion to table, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and just a motion to adjourn, please.
What about our next meeting? We'll schedule
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, next meeting, it's good that Marcos is here too. So next meeting, what would you say to, Marcos, I don't know if you get your calendar as well, because.
Yes.
Oh, great. What would you say, oh boy, we could look at maybe the Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday. Is that would be the 26th of November.
For some reason, I actually have DGR meeting set for the 26th. I don't know.
You do?
I think
wow.
I have something like last Monday of the month, just like automatic.
Wow, okay. Is that okay with you, Pete?
That's fine with me. We're going to try to set up that public hearing for that issue that night, or no? That's something. I mean, I was just saying at the time.
Well, if you.
I think it works, yeah.
If that would work, I mean, I would say we can put that on the agenda for the 26th, why not?
I'd be more worried if you had suggested like November 5th or something like that. That's only
Enough
like
time.
3 weeks away.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, so we can, and you can arrange that with Ryan, or work that out with Ryan.
Sure.
So the next meeting will be Monday, November 26th, 6 PM,
6
okay?
PM, 6
I
PM
think
is good.
6 PM is better, now
Good
that
for
now
me.
that everything's getting dark.
Yeah.
So, okay, so next meeting is the 26th at 6 of November at 6 PM. All right, one more motion will do it.
Motion adjourned?
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.